It's 4 o'clock in Radio Cairo. This is World of Info.
We keep crossing bridges, don't know where they lead.
This is World of Info. We're coming directly live from Studio 3 in Radio Cairo, and we have the great pleasure and honor to have with us Mr. Tran Thanh Cong, the ambassador of Vietnam to Cairo. So we're coming live from Radio Cairo, FM 95.4. This is World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Samuel Samir is at the control. Our direct line number is 257-89407. And we have the great pleasure and honor to have with us His Excellency Ambassador Tran Thanh Cong, the ambassador of Vietnam to Cairo, and a country that is so dear to Egypt because the Egyptians have been always raised talking about always the great struggle and the great struggle that Vietnam has done in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, seeking for its independence from imperial countries, and at the same time finding a place under the sun. But today we are not going to discuss the war, because the war is long now forgotten. It is almost since 1976 when we're talking about the war. So we're talking about almost 45 years since the war has ended. And so this is historical. So we're talking about Vietnam of today, a country that is in the easternmost country on the Southeast Asian Indochina Chinese peninsula, with an estimated 95.5 million inhabitants. Vietnam shares its land borders with China to the north and Laos and Cambodia to the west. It shares its maritime borders with Thailand through the Gulf of Thailand and the Philippines, Indonesia and Malaysia through the South China Sea. So this is a very complicated geography. Excellency, thank you very much for coming to our program for the second time. And we're talking about Vietnam, the country that has been shaped by geography, unfortunately. Like a lot of countries. Yeah. Geography has a great role in affecting Vietnam history and affecting Vietnam future. Yeah. So tell us how positive was geography, and how was it kind or unkind to Vietnam?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much. You give me the chance today to talk about Vietnam after the war. We're not mentioning about the war, but we are looking for the future, exactly, and how the Vietnamese people survive from the war and now build up the country going up, yes, successful like today. You had just mentioned about the very important position of the Vietnam in Southeast Asia. You know that Vietnam is land border with China in the north, and Laos and Cambodia on the west, and with the Marines with Indonesia and Malaysia. So that's why Vietnam have the very important position. I mentioned about the two way, the existing and the development of any country has two facts. The first one is the legal position and the political position. The position of Vietnam is Southeast Asia. It's on the way. You see, all of the good or ship go through that area. And that is very, very busy way to transfer the products and many things from Japan, from Korea, to the Southeast Asia, and to the Europe. So that's why Vietnam play very important position on the geography. And the second one is political position. You understand that now Vietnam is very important position on political issue. We have the member of the Security Council, 2000 and 2001, and we successful on the role of the chairman. And we have the chairman of the ASEAN country in 2000, and we also play very active role in the region and also in the matter concerning about in the war. So that's a very important position in political. So that's why very important position. So it means we face, of course, as you know, because the important position now, many countries are looking for this. We face why Vietnam has so many wars before, because that is because the very important position.
So we can say that Vietnam originally in the past was the victim of geography, and that's why it was subjected to a lot of colonization and trial of colonization, whether these were the French who have withdrawn from Vietnam in 1954 or the United States of America onwards until 1976.
Yes.
But today we are talking about that geography has helped Vietnam to play a pivotal role in the commerce and industry, the international commerce and industry all over the world.
Yeah.
And I think this is deserves to be mentioned because we have in 1976 we had the unification of the South and the North and the nostalgia of winning over the greatest force in the world. But 10 years later, in 1986, the Vietnamese party and the Vietnamese security measures and all these authorities at that time found out that we cannot go like this. There has to be a stop. There has to be an economic revolution, which started in 1986. We'll drop the struggle from our dictionary, and we'll concentrate on the economic improvement and improvement of the health, because at that time there were a problem of tuberculosis, there were a problem of malnourishment, there was a problem of education. So three important problems that were facing Vietnam that necessitated that there should be an economic reform and opening out on the world. So Vietnam became integrated in the economic world from 1986 onwards. Tell us about this particular period of time, because not any country, a lot of countries would prefer to live in the past, while you have decided to leave the past where it is and go forward.
Exactly.
Tell us about this point, please. Tell us about 1986, the pivotal role of the decision making.
In fact, Vietnam, we have the sentence, put the past beside, looking for the future.
Yes.
So that's why after the war in 1975, and we unite the country, South and North. And in 1986, we have the policy of renewal. That is very important strategies for Vietnam. We in all fields, like in industrial, in agriculture, in education, in health field, we have new strategy. And one of the foreign policy, we will become the friend of all of the country. Even like you know, like after the war with French and with American, but now both countries are the trusted relation with Vietnam.
Yes. Last 2 weeks ago, in the mid of the Afghan struggle, Vice President Kamala Harris didn't postpone her visit. She insisted on going on with a very important economic visit to Vietnam in the middle of the Afghan crisis. This means that this is a very important visit for her and for the new system, or the new president in Washington D.C. to start even more warm bridges with Vietnam, right?
Yes, exactly. We play a very important position. You see that I just mentioned we are chairman of the ASEAN country, and we have the permanent member of the Security Council. And last week, the Vice President of American to visit Vietnam.
And I think there is also, we missed an important point, is the fact that Vietnamese Navy is having some sort of training with the American Navy sometimes as well, right?
Longs before we had the marriage of Americans go to Da Nang. And just a visit, and we also have some of the field cooperation with the American on that field. And we think like I just mentioned for you that we forget the past. Now we're looking for the future. So we have cooperation not with the U.S. Even we have the cooperation with France, and we have the more than 136 country already established a relation between Vietnam with Vietnam.
And since we are there, we have to talk about the trial of the international or the improvement of the education.
Yeah.
I think that Vietnam has now a lot of universities that has opened branches in Vietnam. Beside the national education or the national university system, you have a lot of branches of American and French universities that are working hand in hand, trying to attract the students, for the Vietnamese students and students from local, from nearby countries to enroll in their study, right?
Yes. Now you can easily to find the university from many countries are now in Vietnam. American university, French, German, and Japan, China. They also opened the university in Vietnam. But on the other hand, we have policy to send all the people to go abroad to learn. Like the student after finish the college, they can go higher to the university, or you can have these short school and long term training abroad. And you know that like we have a lot of students now in American and in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and I think that is good chance for the student to follow with the school and get experience from these countries and come back to Vietnam to have the people of Vietnam to build up the country.
We have seen in 1975 an exodus of South Vietnamese, especially the officials of South Vietnamese government had an exodus which maybe reached about 100 to 200,000 Vietnamese that went abroad. And nowadays they are reaching almost 1 million from their descendants and their families. More than 1 million are living in the United States and of course Canada. But Vietnam, as you have said, has just put aside the past. So there is a sort of cooperation between Vietnamese in diaspora with Vietnam, and that these people are more than welcome to invest and work and visit.
Now we have the open policy for the investor to Vietnam.
Yes.
You can see that we have the very big company are now investing in Vietnam, like the from Korea and also from the Korea is now the top investor in Vietnam, and the second one is from German, and the third one from Japan, and of course many countries. We give the priority for the investment now into Vietnam. So that's why we have the policy like this one. So many investment from abroad go from outside go to Vietnam.
Well, we're still listening to His Excellency Ambassador Tran Thanh Cong, the Ambassador of Vietnam in Cairo, and we're talking about the success story of Vietnam from a semi-demolished country after the war to a country that is going very fast to become a developed nation, not just a developing nation. So stay tuned with us to the World of Info from Radio Cairo, and coming right after the break. You're still listening into World of Info from Radio Cairo, coming live directly from the studios in Maspero, and today we are having the pleasure to have with us His Excellency Tran Thanh Cong, the Ambassador of Vietnam in Cairo, and we're talking more about a sector in the economic country of Vietnam which has seen a lot of suffering during the war that reached the amount of almost starvation in Vietnam, especially after the finishing of the war in 1975 onwards till 1986, the reform year. There was malnourishment, there was decrease in the amount of the harvests, and Vietnam was suffering and choking from the stagnation in the agricultural sector. The community or the societies, different societies or communions of fields have failed to produce good harvest, and suddenly the authorities decided that they are going to make a reform in the agricultural sector. They're going to completely change and do a metamorphosis. Tell us about this, because after we want to see how can you change a country from a starving country to a country that is the second most important country for export of rice, which is the main meal of the Vietnamese. And not only rice, but coffee and cashew nuts. Yes, and so suddenly Vietnam is becoming an agricultural tycoon, if we may use the expression, from a period of time that was a starving country. This is a very important lesson in economy. Tell us about that, sir.
Yes, as you mentioned, that over more than 30-year renewal policy, Vietnam agriculture records very rapid and stable growing rate of the field of the agriculture. But I think the important thing is, after the war, we give the land to the people, and the people can use the land for farming or for doing and to get the products by themselves.
Not as a communion, or not as collective farms, not the communist system of the collective farms. They
we give the land, the farm, to the farmer.
Yes, but you have made some precaution that was not made by other countries, that this land given to family X will not be divided among the inheritors, right? No. It has to stay within the family X. They cannot divide the pieces of land and make it this way, right?
The first thing we do, so that means the people work hard, because you get the profit and everything for themselves and for the family. So that means the product is higher.
But the problem is, which we see, for example, here in Egypt, is that the farmers like to sleep and live next to their piece of land. So how did you solve this problem? Because the family, if they decide to build on this fertile land, you'll start having urbanization of the countryside. How did you prevent this?
For the countryside, we only to give the land for the people, for using for the farm, for planting the tree.
But they cannot build homes.
Cannot do anything.
They cannot build a home in it.
No, cannot. That is the thing. I think that is one choice. We after the 1986, we do like this one. So for the saving for the people, to lack of the material, to lack of the rice, to lack of the fruit or something, they can do for their family first. So because after the war, the people are surviving many things, lacks of many things.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the first thing like this one in agriculture we do, but the follow one, we get the high technique from assistance from some of the country around the world, especially from the Russia, from China, to have us to build up the agriculture field. So the agriculture are going to modern one.
I would like to stress on certain important point. I mean, during the Pol Pot regime, the Khmer Rouge, Vietnam has interfered in Cambodia, and then it was invaded partially by China. And you're telling me that you have imported technology from China. How can relations go from very sore relation to a very friendly relation? I mean, you had always very strong ties with the Soviet Union and then Russia.
Yes.
But China was an invader of Vietnam in the 70s during the Cambodia problems, and yet now you're having them as very important economic partners. How was that possible?
You see, I mentioned for you, that is the story about the past. But the interest from both sides, the China's, of course, want to import a lot of things from Vietnam, and we also import a lot of things from China. And living of the people are very linked together with interest for both sides. So we share the interest with China, like even from agriculture, from the electric, and from the even using of the water, because we share the water with China on the Red River.
Yes.
So that is both sides, the interest of both sides. So that we have negotiation with China, even with Cambodia after the war, and with Laos also. So we share the experience for each other. That is the way we do.
That's very important to have this as a motto, the interest or shared interest.
Sharing interest.
Sharing interest. So let's go to an important hard time, the hard times that the world is living in, and what the people of the world, and especially people of Vietnam, are facing nowadays, which is the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
The epidemic of COVID has swarmed the world and has affected the agricultural sector of Vietnam. And I was reading a report 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago about Vietnam and about the fact that the agricultural role of Vietnam in exporting the rice and the coffee, especially the coffee and the cashews, is declining because the government itself is making a lot of restriction in the communication between different sectors of the country from fear of spread from one side to another of COVID. And so the world now is complaining that Vietnam is not sending or exporting coffee or exporting rice or exporting cashews with the same rate that it used to the pre-COVID area. Tell me how this problem is occurring and how Vietnam is planning to get the whole world, not just Vietnam, out of this COVID crisis.
Yes, as you know, the COVID, the virus is now infects many fields, not only in agriculture.
Yes.
And we are now facing many problems with this. We lack of the people because now the government give our government decided the first one is to rescue the people. We pay more attention about the health of the people, and the second, beside this, we need to do the best for economy. That's two things go parallel at the same time. But of course, the first thing we want to rescue the people first. So that's why now you understand that in Vietnam we are now still isolated and with the pandemic for every provinces in Vietnam. The people from this province cannot move to another province if you don't have permission. And the government provide from the responsibility of this issue, it should be by the governor of each city. So that's why they do everything by themselves inside. So that's why we try to control the COVID situation right now, not to spread for other provinces.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have this as a problem of containment, if we may use the expression. But the other problem, which is of course the vaccination. They say if you vaccinate, as Dr. Fauci, the famous doctor of the United States, say if we are going to vaccinate 70 to 80% of the population, then we'll start to have the herd immunity, and then they will have we will put a hold on the spread of COVID virus. And still there is a problem with the 95 millions, the same problem that we're having here in Egypt, which is how to improve the rate of vaccination. You told me before we went on air that 10% of the population now is immunized with the double dose. So how far is the plan, or how ambitious is it to go further, to reach 60 or 70%? And what time do you expect this to happen?
Yes. Up to now we have lack of the vaccine. So that we are now doing is the two things. The first thing, we try to cooperation with other countries in the world to import the vaccine. And the second one, we are now on the third period to test with our
own vaccine.
And we hope that we will have it at the end of this year. And we have planned for the people, all of the people in Vietnam, around 70% at the end of this year.
At the end of 2021.
2021. And we hope that in beginning of the 2022, we'll get 80% for the people take the vaccine. Because we're now using all kind of vaccine.
So the factories are starting to speed up the production of
Vaccine.
the vaccine. But still, all the vaccines in Vietnam now are imported ones.
Yes.
You didn't start the manufacture yet.
Not yet. We are waiting. We are now testing for the third time. Yeah, we hope that we will testing last for the fourth time. We will decide to produce the vaccine.
Yes, you're in the third or the fourth stage of study of these of these vaccines. So. Another important sector that has suffered, of course, all over the world, not just in Vietnam, is the rising, one of the very promising sectors of Vietnam, which was the tourism.
Tourism.
Yes, and I think that you have reached in 2020, before the insult of the epidemic, you reached the 20 million mark, which you wanted to do, the benchmark of having 20 million tourists from all over the world to visit Vietnam. And I believe that most of the tourists are not just coming from all over the world, but a lot of them are coming from Japan and from China and from neighboring countries, enjoying the beautiful beaches, the forest, and even the cultural fields in the cultural heritage, especially in the Hanoi area or in these areas. So tell us about the problems that this section, the touristic section, is suffering from.
You know that we have raised the number of the people go to Vietnam for tourists last year. You just mentioned around 20 million. But now, no, we don't have any tourists go to Vietnam, because up to date, when I talk with you here, Vietnam is still closed for not issued any visa for the tourists go to Vietnam right now.
But you issue business visas for the business.
Of course, for the other people will follow with the instruction of the Minister of Health. The people for businessmen can go to Vietnam, and now we are going to do with the people. If you take the 2 shots of the vaccine and you have the PCR test, and you can go to Vietnam.
But not as a tourist, as a business.
No, only for visitors.
Yes.
Yeah, for tourists up to now. Sorry, that we don't have any chance for tourists right now.
And even you, sir, didn't go to Vietnam for the past year, right?
No.
Unfortunately, right?
Unfortunately, you see.
You stayed here because...
Yes, even for me, I stay because we're not allowed to come back. Even for me. If I come back to Vietnam right now, I will be isolated by myself for 2 weeks. Yeah.
And of course, this is the vacation will be blown up.
Yes, sorry about it. We hope that we will have time to be back to Vietnam on the near future.
So we're still listening to Radio Cairo FM 95.4 World of Info with His Excellency Ambassador Tran Thanh Cong, the Ambassador of Vietnam to Cairo, talking some exchanging food for thought about Vietnam and about the international COVID crisis. Stay tuned with us. We're coming right after the break. So we're coming live from Studio 3. This is World of Info coming from Radio Cairo FM 95.4, and we have the great pleasure to have with us His Excellency Ambassador Tran Thanh Cong, the Ambassador of Vietnam to Cairo, and we are talking about 2 important sectors that have suffered a lot. The first sector is the health sector. The health sector before 1986 was facing great problems. There was what you can call an epidemic of tuberculosis. When we say tuberculosis as an epidemic, this means that the health care service and the sanitation and the type of buildings that the people are living in to have infections or marked infection of tuberculosis means that they are living under very harsh conditions. And nowadays, of course, the tuberculosis level is almost approaching 0 in Vietnam, and this was after the reform year of 1986. But the whole world, in the whole world, the health sector has faced the problem of COVID, and I believe that the health sector in Vietnam has seen this big burden. Tell us how the health sector fared with COVID and how it is trying to improve the numbers and to increase the number of available intensive care beds.
One of the things very important you mentioned is the health service in the health sector. After we have nothing. But you know that we call on for the investment in health sector is developed day by day. And the state guarantee about 50% of the total health spending. 50%. And the state and the people are implementing together, both sides, the government and the people. And at the same time to increase the attraction of the social resources, including private, non-profit, and volunteer to involve for the health sector, both sides in Vietnam and also abroad. And the second one is the encourage investor of all economic sector to set up the specialized medical establishment of high quality. So that's why we in the health sector we make many progress. And for the
COVID problem,
it's now not only Vietnam.
Yes,
many countries in the world have facing with it. You see, from the first wave of COVID and the second wave of COVID in Vietnam, we were very successful the detection process. Now the 4 waves are now in Vietnam. So we in fact now we are lack of the not enough space in the hospital, and we not enough the vaccine. We now in Vietnam we asking for the all of the army forces to involve for this to help the people to recover.
So you started building a lot of army field hospitals.
Yes.
In different provinces.
In different provinces.
Yes.
And so that's why we try to
started spreading these military hospitals all over the world,
yes.
all over the
all
provinces.
Over the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is reducing the number of urgency for having beds. The number
yes,
of beds
yes.
definitely has been doubled,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
And does Vietnam as a high-tech investment, do they produce, for example, ventilators and ICU equipment in your factories in Vietnam?
Yes, you can see a lot of things in Vietnam right now.
Yes,
we have the products from many fields. Agriculture, we have famous with the rice,
yes.
as you mentioned, and coffee. In industrial, we have the electric equipment, like smartphone. Like you can see a lot of even the car right now. Yeah, we have a very famous car in Vietnam.
What's the name of the brand?
It's the Vin car.
Vin
car. Yeah, we have just get the prize for in Paris last year about that car.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this will bring us to an important sector, which is the industry. And I believe that the industry might have suffered from COVID, but definitely with the protection and isolation methods that are applied to the workers, I think the industry is beginning to pull up from the COVID and try to pull the economy upwards, right? Or to how far is the industry suffering from COVID, and how far it is recovering from the COVID problem?
No, you see that in the COVID time right now, we lack of the worker. Because we're not allowed the worker to work from in that area, not more than 100 people working. So that we are now reduce the number of the
capacity
around 50%. So we face many difficulty. But in another hand, we can try to export, because that field we can do, like export with some of the priority production of Vietnam to the world, like the rice, like the coffee, like the smartphone or something. Yeah. So we try to do this.
There was, and of course, the sports equipment, the famous shoes and famous T-shirts, something like that.
Yeah, textile.
Textiles.
Yeah.
But there was a problem that, especially in the textile industry, that was the rumor that's going in the 80s and the 90s, that Vietnam industry is built on the shoulders of child labor. And I know that this is not true, because these factories are already branches of famous brands that have their own inspectors, will not allow such thing. Just to clarify this in the listeners, from your own words, I think there is no child labor in Vietnam anymore.
In fact, you see that even in Egypt right now, you can see a lot of things from Vietnam.
Yes, of course.
Like the sports shoe, like the sweep, and we are very famous with textile. Before, we import most of the material we import from China, but nowadays we try to do ourselves the material inside, domestic, and the second we expanded many exporters from other country, like from India, very famous one with the material for textile, even from Egypt, the cotton. So we import from Egypt. So we open many markets for the country. So that you understand that it should be better than depends on the import from one side. So that we can solve many problems with the material with the neighboring country.
Of course.
Yeah.
So we're still talking with His Excellency Ambassador Tran Thanh Cong, and we talked about the industrial sector, about the health sector, and after the break we'll talk about the Egyptian-Vietnamese relations. So stay tuned with us. So we're still listening to the World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Samuel Samir is at the controls, and we're coming live from Radio Cairo FM 95.4. Our direct line number is 257-89407, and we're having the pleasure to have with us Excellency Tran Thanh Cong, the ambassador of Vietnam in Egypt, and we are reaching the final station of our interview. We're talking about the Egyptian-Vietnamese relations. I know that there is a lot of nostalgia in this relation. From the start of the 60s, Egyptians became very much involved with the information they got through the media about the struggle of the Vietnamese people and about their fight for dignity and self-respect and liberation. And so Vietnam has a very special part in the hearts of Egyptians, especially in the hearts of people who lived in the 60s and 70s, and they were very impressed with General Giap, and who had led with a great success the armies of Vietnam in the famous march reaching the borders and Saigon itself, or Ho Chi Minh City, and of course Ho Chi Minh, who has received education in France and became a very extremely cultured man, and he visited Egypt on his way to France when he was going on the Suez Canal and back. So this special type of historical friendship goes back to many years. But let's talk about the present, as you said, and about Egyptian-Vietnamese relations. It's not nostalgic, it's not just a nostalgic relation or a friendly relation, but it's an economic relation that goes back with its great improvement after the visit of President Sisi to Vietnam in 2017. Tell us about this visit, where the presidents decided to stay for 2 long days in Vietnam and signed up to 20 treaties of economic collaboration. Tell us about that, because I think this was a very good bridgehead for such an economic reform.
Yeah. Yes. If we talk about the Vietnam and Egypt relation, it's long story.
Yes.
And very many things to mention. But I only mention one thing in the past. That is Vietnam. Egypt is one of the first Arabic country to have relation with Vietnam in 1963.
Yes.
And we also the first country opened the commercial representative in Egypt before we have the diplomatic relation in 1956.
Yeah.
So that is, we have long relation with both the diplomat and also for the economy. And you just mentioned about the visit of President Sisi in 2017. That is the very important time for both countries. In the visit of President Sisi to Vietnam, we signed more than 20
treaties,
treaty, agreement and MOU in many fields. Agriculture field, fishery, in education, and many. And you see, after the visit of President Sisi, we have already sent the student from Vietnam to Egypt to learn Arabic. Yes, and of course we have cooperation on the culture. Many delegation on the both side exchange the delegation to performance the show for Vietnamese people how about the life in Egypt, and Vietnam group dancer come to Vietnam to show how about the life of Vietnam. So the people from both countries understand each other. And the second thing you can see, after the visit, a lot of specialists, engineer, worker to go to Vietnam, work in many fields in Vietnam. And we also have here in Egypt, the people, the engineer and worker and student go to Egypt to learn and to work here. So I can say you that after the visit of President Sisi, both relation between Vietnam and Egypt are growing up.
Is there any investment about of Vietnamese business people investing here in Egypt or vice versa?
The investment from Vietnam to Egypt, it's not much, around 2 million. It's most of the thing is on the service area, on the hotel, and some quite few on the agriculture, because it's a long distance. You understand the investment. We are now looking for the next future. We will have more people are going both sides going to each other. Yeah.
And the exports between Vietnam and Egypt, what type of exports Vietnam is exporting to Egypt, and vice versa?
The export to Vietnam, most the thing to export in Egypt right now is the top one is now the people, black people, to Egypt. The seafood product.
Yes.
You can easily to see the
yes,
the seafood
I found
product,
that.
In the shop.
Yes, sea bass and things like that.
Yes, to Egypt.
And shrimps.
And shrimp. And of course, besides that, you can see a lot of textile material, textile products to Egypt.
And what's Egypt exporting to Vietnam?
Now, export to Vietnam is cotton. It's the first one, material for textile. And of course, some of the equipment from the machine for the oil exploration. Yeah. Yes.
So, and of course, when we were having a meeting with Mr. Mohammed Nawar as well, in the president of the radio broadcasting service, he talked about cooperation in the field of radio and media, right? Yes. And that about the interview that they were having with him on the anniversary, the centennial of Ho Chi Minh, and his special place in the hearts of Egyptians and of Vietnamese. And of course, the most important point that we have to mention is that you have promised that you are going to send more programs about Vietnam to Radio Cairo to broadcast.
Yes.
Before we leave, we'd like to talk about the cuisine.
Yes, cuisine. Yes.
Because Vietnamese food is very popular all over the world nowadays. Even we have some Vietnamese restaurants in Egypt, especially in Hurghada and places like that. What makes the Vietnamese food attractive to people?
In fact, you see that Vietnam have the mixed culture. We have a little bit influence culture from China, and we have a little bit from India, and of course we have a long time with French and American. So that's why the food is very mixed one, and many kind of the food. You can easily to find out in Vietnam. Many restaurant, even Egypt restaurant in Ho Chi Minh City.
Yes.
And
Lebanese, of course.
Japanese, of course, and many kind of the food. But I can tell you that the people like the cuisine of Vietnam because that is the meat of the country. It's not so hot. It's not oil. It's good for health. And
so Vietnam is not having an obesity problem. I can see from your aids and from you, sir, that you're very slim. Most of Vietnamese are like that, right?
Yes, because for the food, Vietnamese people like to do exercise in the morning. You can see a lot of people at the park and on the street early in the morning. Yeah, so that's why with the food also not so oil. So people are not as big as you see here in Egypt.
Well, actually, it's a great pleasure to have you with us, Your Excellency, Ambassador Tran Thanh Cong, and we had a full discussion and exchange of food for thought about Vietnam and about Egypt. Looking forward for further cooperation and looking forward to have you once more again in our radio program to talk about Vietnam, a dear country to Egyptians, and I believe Egypt is also a dear country to Vietnam.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'm looking for another chance to talk more detail with you about the culture and about the people, and we can talk more about the cuisine in Vietnam.
Yes, of course.
So of course you see that we have a lot of heritage in Vietnam.
Yes.
That's why the people want to go to Vietnam to see the heritage. And of course, the very nice beaches.
And a lot of them are UNESCO heritage sites, which are very, very important. Sir, it's a great pleasure. We had His Excellency Ambassador Tran Thanh Cong, the Ambassador of Vietnam to Cairo. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Samuel Samir was on the controls. Looking forward to see you next week. Stay tuned to Radio Cairo FM 95.4.